Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our coverage of the 2017 North American Scouting Grounds. We've got all hands on deck for this segment because in just a few minutes, the first ever Scouting Grounds draft will take place, with each of the LCS organizations picking one player from this week's event for exclusive negotiation privileges. Because this is our first draft, the order was determined by random draw, with FlyQuest taking the #1 pick. But since the initial announcement, teams have already begun to buy, sell, and trade their draft positions, resulting in our current draft order, as you can see on your screen. Cloud9 have picks 1, 3, and 9, and Clutch Gaming has moved up to take pick 4 along with their original pick 6.
And this is actually incredibly exciting, especially since, in my opinion, that it's Cloud9 doing it, because they've always had an eye for talent. Jack is always jumping on whatever he thinks is going to be really good. You think back to Cloud9 Tempest and Eclipse, Febivin, Odawamne. He got Jensen before he was even eligible to play. This guy is serious about growing talent that hasn't been completely in the spotlight yet.
And I just love the draft as a whole. I mean, just coming from a huge traditional sports fan, every year I would watch my favorite sports, read up on all the players who might come, and see it transition into the actual LCS now is something that I can't wait for going to the future. This is a great first step, and there's so much potential here. Like you said, with Cloud9 investing heavily in the future of players in the past, continuing to be able to do so here, this is where winning traditions can start being grown.
That's all right. And also, we have one of their members currently
Yeah, I was
here.
about to say. I didn't mean it. I was about to say, when is he going to say it? When is he going to say it? No.
All those great players,
All those great
except
players.
for...
He misses the mark
Yeah.
from time to time. Let's just say no. I'm just really excited to be out here. I know all the players that are being drafted pretty much. You see them in solo queue all the time. So I'm excited to see who Cloud9 picks, who I will probably get to play with potentially. So
Do you have any inside information for us? You know exactly who they're going to pick?
we'll see. Actually, I don't know. I don't know entirely either. So.
Like, who would you want? Who impressed you today that you think would be really great on your academy team?
Man, the games have been pretty hectic, but I don't know. There's a lot of players that could potentially be pretty good, but I don't have like one to.
All right.
So a storyline throughout camp just that I thought was really interesting was Cloud9 with their first pick in the Drake draft took the top laner League. They played a lot with him, and I was able to talk to Smoothie a little bit. He said he thought he looked pretty good. And then once the draft order was announced of this draft, they traded up and bought that spot so that they could get the first overall pick, which, you know, if you're reading the signals, seems like that they're very, very interested in this player. And that's why I think the Scouting Grounds already is such a tremendous success, because this is a player that C9 identified through actually working with him as someone they want to continue working with. And this is the future of talent growth in North America, and you're seeing it happen already in the first draft.
Yeah, and since C9 is on the clock, and we'll get to that pick once they have it in, let's run down who they had for Scouting Grounds. They had League, Fnatic, Linsanity, Ashe, and Iron Pyrite. We know that League is someone that impressed. Who else in that roster do you think might have impressed you guys so far?
I think Fnatic was the other one that stood out for a lot of people. Both those players are very young, and so you could see that C9 definitely had a priority on looking for lesser-known quantities in the sense that don't have a longer, challenger scene history.
Yeah, and the fact that Fnatic, incredibly young player, 16 years old coming in, that's something that you can grow and kind of mold if you have the coaching staff to do so. And the other thing, too, is these are players that we're talking about that on a team that went 1 and 3 in their matches, right? And it may be somebody getting the first pick off of that Cloud team.
Well, I think what's also interesting is that supposedly they were smashing scrims before.
Yeah.
And
That's what everyone said.
Everyone always
Actually,
smashes
a
scrim
similar
guy.
thing happened last year where this team that was winning every single scrim just ended up losing every game. So I think that a lot of these games, when it's at a lower level of play, are usually kind of just, whoever decides to show up that day. So it's not really hard. It's hard to say, like, even though Team Ocean won, it's hard to say, like, oh yeah, they're for sure going to be the best team with those players, because it's just such a big.
Right.
Yeah, because the game is so team-focused, and this is about individuals. You're not drafting a whole team immediately, right? You're going for individuals, trying to find that diamond in the rough. And now you're looking at Cloud going, all right, they went 1 and 3, but they definitely may have seen something there that made them buy that first spot.
Right, especially when the team is so young. I don't think it would be wise to look at like on-stage performance, after a week of practice and be like, oh, that's who that player is for sure. You want to base it more off of what you've seen after a week of scrims and how open they were to communication and criticism.
Yeah, exactly. We basically today, for the viewers, you got the tip of the iceberg. There is so much underneath with people playing the scrims Monday, Tuesday, the interviews, and onward. Just they worked with League for so long. I would be surprised if he was not the first pick.
So speaking with some of C9's management, got a chance to talk with Wes Rice, who will probably be the head coach of the academy team. He was looking for individual skill, He was looking for players to adapt easily to changing situations in the game. But most importantly, he was looking for players that kept their head through the face of adversity. And I think with some adversity so far in the tournament, he got a good look at that.
Yeah, I think that's something that is very important for a lot of people, is how they handle pressure, and not necessarily like, do you play as well under pressure? That's not really what I think people mean when they say keep a calm head necessarily. It's a lot about, did you tilt? Did your attitude change? Did your approach change?
I think a lot of coaches or teams are just looking for players that are easily like molded into good players, not rather. I mean, individual skill is also important, but I think the most important thing, especially with Academy, and there's no true incentive to win Academy, they just want players that are able to listen and learn with the coaches and just become better players over time. So
now, coming from the event last year, how do you feel like the draft might have been a little bit different for you? So you just finished getting off stage. You, in your case, had won it overall, and now you're sitting there waiting to have your name called. What are some of the thoughts you think might be going through a player's head?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say because last year wasn't at all like what it is now, but I think that probably what's going through their heads is just, I hope that I get picked, not really what order. They just want to get picked because, you know, then you get a chance to potentially sign with a team. So I would just be hoping that I'm picked. It doesn't matter really what order they're in. So,
I mean, that's what's so exciting.
Yeah.
Like watching football drafts, you have everyone waiting. They get that phone call, and their whole family is around them cheering. Like, I can't wait for League to get to that moment where, like, you know, someone's sitting at home, like with their whole family ready to pop off.
All right, well, now it's time to head to the stage for our first pick with League Operations Representative Chris Greely alongside Cloud9 Representative owner Jack Etienne. There you see on the back wall the pick order and the silhouette of the futures for all of these players. Hopefully, 10 of them will have their lives changed here. Guys, take it away.
Welcome to the first North American Scouting Grounds Draft. The first pick today belongs to Cloud9, acquired from FlyQuest. And with the first pick ever, Cloud9 selects League. And Echo Fox is now on the clock.
All right, there you have it. The first pick ever. How appropriate is it? The first League of Legends player drafted is named League.
League OP. League is good.
That's right, League OP.
I love League of Legends.
You got a new teammate.
Yeah. Talk to us here about what your thoughts were on League.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, I got to sit in and watch them play, you know, just yesterday, and he's just, overall, he seems to have a really good mindset about the game. He's really willing to learn, and he has a huge champion pool. Plays tanks, he plays carries. He's willing to play new champions, and I think that's a lot like what teams want. They want someone who can communicate, someone who can learn, and someone who has a big champion pool, and he had all three.
And the other thing, too, is whenever you're looking at who people are drafting for their academy team here, I think it's important to look at what positions are open potentially on the main team, because Licorice is a new guy coming in, and a lot is expected of him. And if he starts to have troubles, you want someone who you can potentially put in. And obviously, that means it can't be an import player. So already they're kind of bolstering what was one of the biggest question marks with their team here in the draft.
Yeah, what if they draft a jungler next? You know, no. He turned so fast.
All right.
That'd be our report.
Yeah, so Zikin Zhao League, now the first player ever drafted by Cloud9. Up next is Echo Fox, and now this is a team from the LCS last year that had moderate success, didn't go into relegation.
They never went to playoffs.
But they didn't go to playoffs either, so they're looking to make some big moves as well in terms of players drafted.
Right, and I think for them, once again, kind of looking at who is not their import players, you're potentially looking most likely at some jungle stuff, because there were a lot of really promising young junglers here, 2 16-year-olds, I believe a 17-year-old, so really young players overall. They have Dardoch, who is, you know, social media-wise saying he's definitely going to have a new approach this season, but I think you have to have some sort of backup plan with him, just knowing the volatility that he comes with, just speaking frankly. And so I think there's a lot of good people here that you can potentially look to. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Speaker, Fnatic, or even Blabberfish go at the second spot here.
Yeah, and this is the first team throughout the draft that wasn't one of the teams in the scouting grounds, so they don't have as much of a look in the inside because they didn't work with 5 players for the entire week, right? Yeah. So Echo Fox are kind of on the outside looking in, and they're going to kind of judge things by the face value of them and word of mouth as well.
Yeah, and if they are doing that, that means there are a lot of Team Ocean, Optic Gaming's team that they got to go ahead and coach, players that were available. A lot of those players seemed academy ready.
What did you think was the jungler that stood out the most for you? Because if we're going with the jungle line of logic, who would you take with the second pick?
I mean, it's kind of hard to say, honestly, because this meta was not very good to show off your individual performance.
Do you play
so to
Grog
say.
as well?
Gragas Sejuani?
Yeah. So basically, yeah, I think that the jungle meta just kind of made it very difficult for the players to show off. So I would probably go with either Blabberfish or Spica, but it's kind of a toss-up, really. They didn't get to show off very well because of the...
And I got to cut you off here, so we're going to go ahead and toss it down to an interview with the first pick ever in Scouting Grounds, Felipe and League together.
Thanks, guys. I am here with League, the first ever draft pick. You're the first pick. How does that feel?
It feels really unreal to me. I think everybody expected me to be the first pick, but yeah, it was just super unreal for me. So
That's a lot of confidence, and you were playing with a lot of confidence today. Cloud9 picked you up. What do you think about the org, and how excited are you to become a part of it?
I think C9 is an org that cares a lot about their players. Like from their coaching style, I can tell that they're really player focused, and they really thought about like what the players or their opinions. So I think it's a really good org, and I would like to be able to work with them.
And what have you learned from this overall experience at Scouting Grounds? You were telling me you were a little bit excited beforehand.
I learned so much about like just what it's like to be a pro player. I think before it was just me thinking, oh, I get to play video games, but like no, it's just there's way more than that to being a pro. So
Perfect. Well, congratulations again, and we're going to throw it back to our friends at the analyst desk.
All right, thanks. It's great to hear from League, the first pick for Cloud9 in the top lane. And even in that interview, even when he was shaking Jack's hand, he just seemed very composed, like a veteran almost.
I mean, it's a new experience, I think, for a lot of people. You don't know if you're supposed to be excited, if you're supposed to, go out and say some grandiose statement, and as well as the fact that just being a pro league player is probably new for him in that sense as well.
Yeah, 17 years old, incredibly young, but a bright future ahead of him with Cloud9. Like I've said, they've brought up some great talent in the past and been able to recognize it, and they went all in on this. They bought that spot so nobody else could snatch League up.
All right, the timer is done. Now it's time to head to the stage for the second pick, Chris Greely, announcing alongside Echo Fox head coach Nick Anero-Smith.
With the second pick of the 2017 North American Scouting Grounds Draft, Echo Fox selects Spica. And our next pick belongs to Cloud9. They are on the clock.
All right, thank you very much, Greely. So, Ming Speaker Lu, and this is a guy that I really liked coming in because during the surveys, he was one of the few guys that when I asked what are your strengths, people pointed out something that was laning or mechanics, and understanding that they didn't have a lot of macro. He was one of the few guys that pointed out, I just want to come here and learn. And he's the second youngest player here, and it seemed like a lot of the teams didn't have a lot of information on him coming in.
Yeah, 16 years old, plays a ton of Nidalee and Rek'Sai as well as the Ezreal, but did showcase a little bit behind the scenes that he's able to play some of those more meta junglers and still have an impact.
He was the first pick overall for TSM in the Drake draft that happened earlier, and I think it makes sense for them to be looking at junglers. It's kind of following that same line of logic for why C9 was looking at top laners early on with FLICKR. They just brought on Mike Young for TSM, so they're trying to figure out who's potentially the best jungler that they can get their hands on at this event. Spica was the guy they looked at.
Yeah, so basically, how I was going on earlier about the Gragas Sejuani Jarvan combo. I mean, I heard from some people earlier that he was just doing extremely well in the games before the tournament started. So he was playing Nidalee, he's playing carry champs, and just absolutely destroying the enemy junglers. So I think that that was probably what Echo Fox had heard from people, and they decided to go with him.
Yeah, he started pulling bans constantly. Nidalee
Yeah,
blue
yeah.
side bans. We saw Ezreal banned against him constantly. I
Mhm.
saw games where he would go bottom level 3 and they would get turret because he was playing
Yeah.
Ezreal and they would just siege and they didn't
Yeah.
know what to do about it. So he's definitely a player who takes a proactive role and loves those carry champions.
And I think it's something that's interesting too because he's so young. You can start molding him right away. If you look at like his past 100 games champions, it's Nidalee, Rek'Sai, Ezreal, Lee Sin. The dude loves to be aggressive, but when you
Yeah.
get to competitive, you got to learn to be a bit of a control jungler at different points.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that you want to start imparting on someone right away.
Yeah, and I think just in general, it's easier to make a carry player, learn the tank champions opposed to a tank-only player learn the carry champion.
Right.
So I think as a team, it's easier to pick up a carry player because that's usually the harder style to learn.
So with Speaker gone, who do you think is the next jungler that's off the board? It seems like it would be Blabber, right?
I think that's an easy one to look at. I think Fnatic is someone else who picked up a lot of praise over the course of this event as well. So one of those two. Blabberfish was someone that the coach who was working with him, or the manager who was working with him, said that he would be LCS ready in a year, which is something that's very good to hear if you're potentially looking at draft picks.
But it's strange because it's Optic that sold their spot to Cloud9 here, and Optic were the ones who had a full team. Optic just trusting in the fact that they can scout and grow talent, proving this event, their victory wasn't a fluke, and that they'd be able to do it in the future instead of having to draft.
All right, let's head on down with FLICKR. It's the second pick of the draft, Speaker.
Hey guys, I am here with Speaker, the first jungle pick of our draft, and you just got picked up by Echo Fox. What are your thoughts and feelings on that?
I'm really excited to get picked up by Echo Fox. They're like a great org, and I think Rick Fox is a great owner. I've heard a lot of good things about him, and how he cares about his players.
Now, you're one of the youngest players here, only 16, right? What have you learned from this overall experience?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway from this scouting ground event is like how to play as a team, and not just play by yourself. You gotta sacrifice for your team. Gotta pick like unconventional picks, or just play to the meta. To benefit your team, and not just play for yourself.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for this interview, and we're going to throw it back over to our friends at the desk.
Thank you very much, friend on the ground, FLICKR. So now, Cloud9 back on the board, number 3, their second pick. They already have their top laner. We think they have their jungler here. No, they definitely have their jungler here.
God.
Where else are we? I thank you for
Sure
taking
they're
the
not
chops.
gonna
You're
draft
doing
a
good.
jungler?
Doing good.
Pile it on. Next, Mark, you gotta take a stab.
Now I see why you guys wanted me here. You just want to take pot
We need a-
shots
we need
at
a
me.
punching
That's-
bag.
Absolutely. That's where it is. So where do you think Cloud9 might be looking there, Mark?
I think we are going to have to see a Blaze Olive come up next. He was a player that went first overall in the Drake draft that happened. He was someone that is highly touted coming in. I actually had a chance to work with him a little bit during his challenger time on Nova. I sat in on a couple scrim sets, and he has a great attitude. He is mechanically very strong, so I think he is someone that the entire, at academy teams were looking for. It was just about need over value, and I think this is when you might see Cloud9 go for more value.
It's interesting because you bring up a Blaze Olive, and his overall performance was actually quite good during laning phases, and then he does take a lot of those risks later on. If I'm looking at a mid laner, I may take a risk with somebody like Palafox because he actually was performing every single game. He would go down in CS, but he knew how to play from behind, which I actually value very highly. But I thought he also was a good playmaker too.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note with Palafox too, he has 0 competitive experience, while
it's a risk.
people like Ablaze, Lin, and even I think Julian to some extent have had, times on teams, real teams, and he's just completely just out of the blue, and he's been playing really well. So I think that's something to factor in.
All right, well, the pick is in. It's time to head down stage toward our third pick of the draft. It's Jack Etienne returning to the stage.
With the third pick of the North American Scouting Grounds draft, Cloud9, who acquired the pick from Optic, selects Ashe. And Clutch Gaming is now on the clock.
All right, experts, what happened here?
I was doing okay until that one.
Ashe is actually the only AD carry that I personally was not impressed by, but Cloud9 must have seen something working with him in the last week that they thought, this is our guy. Because you have guys like Value, like Prismal, who impressed in their play constantly. And we saw Ashe, even today on the stage, make some pretty critical flubs that cost his team the game. They're just saying that's a bad game, and Ashe is the pickup.
it's understandable to want to work with someone you have experience with here, but just in terms of from an outsider perspective, this is definitely a bit of a shocker pick. If it wasn't a Blaze Olive, I don't think we would have been stunned that they took someone else. But to go for Ash like that, I think was a surprise for most people.
Well, you go for Ash there as well. You think somebody else is going to pick him up because Cloud9 have 9th pick. Is somebody in that middle part going to pick up Ash before you? I'm unsure. Like, there's got to be something that we don't know that really impressed Jack.
Yeah, I mean, they had the most experience with him, so there has to be something there that they saw and that no one else from the outside could see. So I'm pretty confident in Jack, like you said earlier. I mean, he does pick up pretty good talent from time to time. But
He definitely does. And there's a little anecdote about Ash where when we were doing the scrim games, one of the computers went out and he was actually separated physically from the rest of his team playing in the scrims. And so it really showed his ability to deal with adversity not in the game. So it's just like, hey, look, I'm in these uncomfortable circumstances. It doesn't matter. I'm still going to perform. And he still was picked up by Cloud9, and Cloud9 valued him pretty highly.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say, what we said earlier in the day, where it's okay to not put too much stake on the performance here, and it's a lot about what you learned working with them. And I think, obviously C9 have seen something through working with him that didn't make its way onto stage for us to see so far, but that's the magic of the draft, is that you never know exactly how a player is going to turn out.
All right, let's head on down to Avali, who's standing by with Johnson, Ash, Cal. Take it away.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with Ash, the first 80 carry pick and the second pick for Cloud9, the team that you've been playing for. Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm really excited.
I mean, you were doing like a little bit more of an excited dance. Do you want to tell me a little bit more why you're excited?
I think a lot of people would be surprised that I was picked, but I have a lot of confidence in my play, and I'm glad C9 saw it in me.
Now, I think you had some connection with Westerice, or what was it like working with him?
Westerice is a really nice coach, and he's really open to players' opinions. So it was really nice working with him, and he lets me do whatever I want, basically.
I love it. Now, as soon as you got picked, we heard some of our analysts on the desk being a little bit doubtful of your skills. Is there anything you would like to say to them to maybe prove them wrong?
I will definitely prove myself when I get on Academy, and I know my play was off, but there's definitely something C9 saw in me.
Well, I believe in you, and I wish you the best of luck on your team. Let's hear what our analysts have to say about that.
Hey, stop trying to start some beef here, Avali. We were just making some analytical play.
Hey. I didn't say anything. It was just these two over here.
I hope he proves it.
Yeah, you don't want to flame your teammate before you play with them.
All right, moving on. We have the first new franchise on the clock. It's Clutch Gaming, and I had a chance to speak with some of the Clutch Gaming representatives for their academy and for their team, and they were looking for an all-around player. Some people were looking for mechanics, some people were looking for intangibles, but speaking to their coaching staff, they want to find one or two guys that they can fully develop and be ready in a year.
Yeah, and they bought this spot from the Golden Guardians, so they moved up in the draft, and I'm thinking mid laner.
Mid laner potentially, as well as potentially top. I believe the rumored top laner for them is Solo. I think I've heard that, right? Mm-hmm. So if that's who your top laner is, that's a potential area, again, where much like the C9 situation, you could see but needing some depth at that position. And the weird thing is I don't feel like there were a ton of tops that stood out over the course of this tournament. I think Kaizen looked really good on the few champs he does play, but there's always been some champ pool depth questions with him, so I'm really interested to see what they go for.
Yeah, same with Pie Cake Lord in terms of one-dimensional play and champion pool.
Yeah.
League was kind of the one that, Cloud9 jumped at that.
Mm-hmm. Right, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of a toss-up between the two mid laners that I think did the best, and that was probably Palafox or Blaze Olive. It's kind of more what you're going for. Blaze Olive is more of a tested player. He's played competitively for a while, and he's always performed pretty well. So if you want to go with that, then that's an easy choice. But I think that Palafox also is a good option.
Yeah. What's his ceiling? That's my question for Palafox, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to crumble under pressure? So far in Scouting Grounds, he proved that it's not just solo queue that he's good at. I want to see what happens if he does get picked up. Like, he's the guy that I'm looking if somebody's going to take that risk.
And he's still pretty young, too, just 18 years old. I mean, a lot of these guys are super, super young, so it's not like anything that's true about them right now will stay true.
Yeah.
Right. We've seen players grow. We've seen them falter. We'll get to see what's next. Now, it's time to head to the stage for our fourth pick. League Operations Representative Chris Greely, alongside Houston Rockets Director of Esports Development, Sebastian Park. Guys, take it away.
And with the fourth pick of the North American Scouting Grounds draft, Clutch Gaming, having acquired the pick from the Golden Guardians, selects Vulcan. And for the next pick, Team Liquid is on the clock.
I just gotta say, and this is a draft tradition. No flame at Chris Greely, but in every sport, when the commissioner comes up, you're supposed to boo them, and we haven't had any of that. So
What are you doing to Chris?
I'm not doing
He's
it.
a
I'm
nice
just saying,
guy.
like,
A
we're not
well-mannered
real.
man.
We're not
Yeah,
real sports
well-mannered.
until we're not real
Don't
sports.
start
until-
that on his desk.
I will
Don't do
not
that.
let Avali do that to us. I will not let you do that to Mr. Greely. He's a stand-up individual. So that pick there, Vulcan, the #1 support that was taken and the #1 pick in terms of Optic Gaming. That was their 4th pick overall, and we were all impressed with them. And he won player of the game or player of the series in their match today.
I think in terms of maybe individual player standout, he might have been the best at the entire event. And I think that's probably a bit of oversight on us to not mention his name at all. And that's a position where they have someone pretty good already in Hakuho. And that's a huge pickup as well if this is some growth you can make.
Yeah, and like this guy's crazy. Like what I heard about him, he's 18 years old. He's been playing the game since he's been 11. I don't remember what I was doing at 11. I was probably picking boogers or something, but this guy picked up League of Legends and he is super good. He's already won DreamHack Montreal. He's been to a tournament. He's played alongside Zag, who was here earlier and talked about that. This guy does have some experience behind him, and like you said, he's been a standout. It's hard to kind of be like, why did that kind of miss us? Like,
Yeah,
right?
I think it's just because supports, you gotta talk
Yeah,
about the mid laner.
under the radar.
Yeah, no.
Mid lane.
Support laner. I also think it's important to note too that NA kind of does lack the native support talent as well in general. I mean, there's other roles as well, but I think that in terms of up-and-comers, he's definitely the one that stands out the most to me and obviously to them. So.
Yeah, he was mild-mannered, very polite when we had the opportunity to chat earlier in the week. And, I remember before they had the interviews for all the players with the teams, he was super nervous. And I said, just be yourself. And I definitely think that he did that, and he was able to lock in a spot here with Clutch Gaming.
Yeah, he compared himself to Ole as his closest, counterpart in the LCS. And I think what we saw today was pretty close. He had some huge recon engages, was able to set his team up for a lot of success. And the thing is, he's very vocal as well. And you saw that not only did he find good opportunities to set plays up, but his team was always right behind him, ready to go, because he's clearly communicating his thought process.
All right, well, let's send it down to Avli with Clutch Gaming's first ever pick, Felipe Vulcan Laflamme. Take it away.
Hey guys, I am here with the first support pick, Vulcan, for Clutch Gaming, a new organization. What are your thoughts on them? Are you excited?
I'm really excited to be part of a new org like that. Obviously, they're unproven, but I'll be happy to grow with the team and hopefully maybe be a face of Clutch Gaming in the future. We'll have to see.
Now, you were also player of the series in your last game. Did you think your skills really made you stand out right there?
I feel like I didn't play as well as I could have in that series, especially the Baron player first game reminds me. Just walking in and dying while we're getting bot towers, but just a small mistake. I don't think it's that much of a big deal. Apart from that, I think I played pretty well most of the week. Yeah.
Now, the last thing I wanted to bring up was, I believe over social media, you said that Ole was your favorite player. He saw this and he gave you his blessing. How did that affect you in your play this weekend?
Oh, just having all his blessing just means I'm gonna play 10 times better. So thanks to him, I couldn't have done it without him, obviously.
Perfect. Well, maybe one day you'll be playing against him. Thank you so much for this interview, and we're going to head back over to our guys at the desk.
Thank you very much, Avali, and congratulations once again to Vulcan for being the first pick for Clutch Gaming. Now, team that you have some history with, Team Liquid, now on the clock. Mark, where do you think they're going?
It's weird to try and speculate just because their roster on paper is so stacked. So you're not looking for a potential replacement. Arguably, you're probably
your
not
17th player. Grab another jungler, collect them all.
Yeah, they have so many players already. Supposedly, they already have such a great starting lineup. It's tough to say, and I think they're just going to go for some value pick. So maybe they take value. He was someone who we think stood out a fair amount. Ablaze Olive is still up, so you're looking to probably grab someone who just impressed you from the outside because Team Liquid was not here working with anyone.
I also think it's a fantastic opportunity for whichever player gets drafted to work under the roster of Team Liquid. If your value gets picked up, he's underneath double lift. It's like, that's got to feel really great to have that type of tutelage on the main NALCS roster.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go with it's probably going to be one of the junglers because both of the junglers that are left, or two of the junglers that are left, I think have played really well, like Blabber and Fnatic, yeah, have been doing just really well in general recently. So I think that those were surprisingly not taken earlier on, especially Blabber. Everyone thought he would be taken a bit earlier. So I think that's probably what they're going to go with.
All right, well, the pick is in, and now it's time to head back down to the stage for our 5th pick, Chris Greely, joined by Team Liquid Academy coach Tim Cho.
First of all, I appreciate the audience not booing me as the analyst desk has suggested. With the 5th pick of the North American Scouting Ground Draft, Team Liquid has selected Value. Clutch Gaming is on the clock.
All right, there it is. Looking to you, Crystal Ball. Tell us the future. Thank you very much, Mark. Value getting picked up and will be under the tutelage of Doublelift.
Yeah, you saw how happy he looked. He seemed like maybe the happiest guy we've seen
I know.
so far, brimming with happiness. And I think it's a good pick. We talked about how he impressed a lot. He's 20 years old, which doesn't sound old, but in reference to Scouting Ground is actually probably on the top half of people's ages.
Yeah.
But he's going to have a lot of room to grow just with the TL organization. I know they always get a lot of flack for their player turnover rate, you could say, but they do have a lot of good players go through their doors and who go on to have really successful careers. So he's going to have a good chance here.
I'm surprised you didn't say analysts too.
Yeah, so those guys are all right.
I mean, you ended up all right. So yeah, I think it's good. But Value, he was somebody who came in and it was like, we kind of didn't know what this guy was going to be like when he arrived, and he ended up being one of the best 80 carries here, drafted as the first 80 carry, and this guy was taken 8th overall in the Drake draft. So he actually did fall down quite a bit before he was picked up by a team, even at the start.
And the thing that stands out to me was his play style over the course of the event, because you see he has really good KDA, and he was a player who, when interviewed, said he was more like a prey, a more consistent player, wanted to hang back and follow up with the team. He wasn't like, a lot of people just said aggressive. Everyone who interviewed almost always just said aggressive, but he was, I want to be calculated, I want to be smart, and I think you could see that. He was very, very calculated in his play.
Yeah, and I think that's really what you want from an 80 carry at the end of the day. You just want someone that, gets the damage out, doesn't die, doesn't get caught, takes towers, and just, finishes the game without getting caught. So.
And there was definitely a question about his champ pool earlier. We had him pegged as a poke utility type 80 carry player, but he definitely stepped up huge here with the Xayah and got the player of the series and showed off great positioning and knowing exactly what his job was.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's a very much a do your job role. And you heard, I think it was actually Prey in an interview, might have been Bang, said the #1 thing an 80 carry can do is not die. That's the first thing you have to do. And
that was right after he played against Misfits and got like Leona blitzcranked.
Yeah.
That was my favorite.
Yeah, so it's very true that like consistency is king at the 80 carry position.
All right, so next pick, Clutch Gaming on the clock yet again. We got to see their first pick earlier. What kind of foundation are you trying to create as a new franchise? You have possibly a lot of your team in place, but what are some of the thought processes that you go through when you're like, all right, these are the 2 roles I want to build around based on the players that are available?
It's interesting because Clutch Gaming has done a lot of talking about analytics and metrics and all these kinds of more scientific approaches. So you probably want a player who does seem open to that. So if you've gone through and read about all the players and their approach to the game, you're probably looking for someone who does have a little bit more analytical of a play style. Unfortunately, I don't have time to go over every single one that was in here right now, but they might want someone that lines up with their culture a little bit more than just skill.
Something else that jumped out at me when I was speaking with their coaching staff is that they're not afraid of veterans. And right now we're seeing a lot of young guys getting drafted, Value being the oldest so far at 20. We talked about Nintendo's experience. We got to see his demeanor. Not saying that's where they're going, but how do you feel about possibly drafting an older player with a little bit more life experience and game experience in your academy team?
No, yeah, I actually completely forgot about Nintendo. No offense to Nintendo, of course, because I think he played really well actually in this tournament. So I think that there is a lot of value though to draft someone that does have experience on your academy team, because they're probably going to be playing with a lot of younger players, and you want someone to kind of lead them, because you can't just have 5 new players. I mean, you could, but it would be very difficult to have no leader, on the team. So I think there's value in drafting him.
And Nintendo was a dude who turned some heads this event where people said, I didn't realize he was still so good.
All right, so the next pick is in. We'll get to see who they go with. Houston Rockets Director of Esports Development, Sebastian Park, returning to the stage with Mr. Greely.
And with the 6th pick of the North American Scouting Grounds Draft, Clutch Gaming has selected Palafox. TSM is now on the clock.
All right, you jumped up as soon as you saw that pick there, Zyrene. Go ahead.
I was like, I love that they're taking the risk. I said in the 4th pick when they had it, I thought they were going to take him then. They went Vulcan, and that was an incredibly smart pick that we had forgotten about. But now we're seeing Clutch Gaming go with the risk of picking up Palafox. But I feel like it's not that much of a risk. He's already shown he's at this level. That's what Scouting Grounds is for. It's to show that you can make those highlight plays. He's not afraid to go in and have a massive effect in those clutch moments, and he's so consistent on top of it.
I think he was really interesting when we were looking at his kind of match history over the course of the seasons. He was a player who actually swapped positions around a lot. He spent a lot of time as a top laner, as a jungler, before settling on mid a lot more frequently in recent years, and having that experience can help.
Yeah, it means you know what your team needs at almost all times. What if I'm the jungler? What if I'm the top laner? It's something that, NA gets a lot of criticism about, where our players don't really play off role as much as Koreans do. And I think that this guy is a great example of good game sense, mechanics, and understands the whole map.
No, yeah, I actually got a chance to work with him on just a fun team over off season, and I think that he has the exact mindset that a lot of teams are looking for, and that's just being super open. Is always asking me, like, what could I have done better here? What could I have done better there? And that's stuff that, as a jungler or as any type of player or coach, you want to hear all the time.
And let's talk about his position here. Taken 6th in the draft, 1st overall mid laner picked up, was dead last, was 20th in the Drake draft. He was the overlooked person.
Mr. Irrelevant this year.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And I think he's a testament to why it is important to have Scouting Grounds, because coming in, he was the highest rated mid laner, and mid lane pool was the pool that everyone had talked about. There was a lot of talent there. We had kind of known values and known quantities, but although he was the highest rated, during that whole Scouting Grounds process, he slipped all the way to the last pick.
Yeah, this is what Scouting Grounds is pretty much about, because if I'm looking out there for talent, I'm going to go for a Blaze Olive because I've seen him before, because he's that mid laner I think is right at that top of the challenger ladder. He's kind of like the cream that's risen up, but there was this other layer there that I didn't see with Palafox, and this is kind of what the Scouting Grounds is for, because Palafox probably would have been still playing solo queue, and it would have been really hard to get that connection to go that next step. This has been kind of the bridge in its path to pro.
All right, so congratulations to Palafox to being one of the pillars of Clutch Gaming's new academy team, but now we got the champs, TSM, on the clock. And TSM is an interesting franchise because they're known for winning. They're known for doing great, but they haven't really invested a lot in an academy team in quite some time.
They seem like they're pretty open to the idea of substitutes on a roster, and that's why they had Mr. Rallis all last year. So I don't think the idea of having depth is anything too foreign to them, but like you said, an academy team is. And with Mike Young, we talked about it a little bit before, being one of the guys that they scouted his position the most with their first pick going to Speaker. He's already been drafted, and now there's a couple other really good junglers that we felt like over the course of the tournament. It was a tough meta to show it necessarily, but a lot of these guys are really young and really hungry.
Yep. Let's run down their roster one more time. So first pick for their team was Speaker, then it was Julian, Piecake Lord, T-Sum, and Noah Most. And it does seem like teams that have drafted their individuals on their Drake team seems to go with them. They got to see the insides. They got to see how their brain works. If we're looking at that with Julian, Noah Most, T-Sum, and Piecake Lord, are there any of those names that jump out, or are you looking elsewhere?
Yeah, so that's kind of the question, right? Like, do they go branch out for a jungler that they think they might need, or do they stick with the familiar, someone they've worked with? If they're sticking with someone they work with, maybe Piecake Lord. He did show some good split pushing over the course of this week. Haunter is a pretty powerful playmaker himself, so that would be someone that would be really nice to learn under for a new player.
Yeah, I think that the TPs, when I listen to the comms, it's usually Piecake Lord on top of his stuff, but then it's like, you're playing solo queue basically. How hard is it to actually communicate when you need to crash in? And I think that in a team environment with somebody like Haunter, I think you'll learn a lot if he gets picked up.
After speaking with Parth and TSM, they are looking for a player for long-term growth, and they're not afraid of picking up some veterans. So let's head down to the stage for the 7th pick with League Operations Representative, Mr. Chris Greely, alongside TSM General Manager Parth Nadu.
And with the 7th pick of the North American Scouting Grounds draft, TSM has selected Ablaze. $100 Thieves is now on the clock.
All right, right? So it is a Blaze Olive. Everyone's relatively consensus #1 player going into the draft, probably going into Scouting Grounds as a whole, falling all the way to #7 here for TSM.
It's a little surprising because there was another mid pick ahead of them. I really wonder what TSM would have taken if someone else had gone ahead and taken a Blaze earlier on, because Clutch Gaming easily could have taken him there. Does TSM then take Palafox, or do they change up from that position? That's why I love the draft, is there's so much mind games and interplay going on between the teams.
Yeah, I feel like being under Bjergsen, though, is kind of like a blessing.
Yeah.
If you're going to learn from somebody, you learn from Bjergsen in NA. Sure. And also, it's a mid laner that is not an import. And there's been so many issues in North America where it's like, who can actually hold up against all these import mids? Like, Pobelter's kind of the one that sticks out. Other than that, it's like you got to import. And if they're able to grow somebody like a Blaze Olive into somebody who can contest mid laners from other regions, then he could be a really fantastic talent.
No, yeah, I think it's really good to see the mid laners getting drafted, in the top 10, because, NA is kind of known for, NA mid, blah, blah, blah. There's not many NA mids in general. So I think it's really good to see that these players get a chance to prove themselves on academy teams, and hopefully in the future, we won't be the laughing stock of mid lane.
Yeah. Well, it's the kind of, competition breeds skill. And so we import all these players. And then, a couple of years from now, we have the best NAs in the world and mid laners in the world.
As you guys were touching on, it's always interesting to see once a couple of the draft picks go through, are you drafting for need or are you drafting for value? And Blaze Olive falling all the way down there, and you guys touched on it, he's been a player that's been around, possibly worried about maybe hitting his ceiling, but I like to point to other NALCS players that have had time to grow. And Apollo, who's been around since 2014. Hakuo has grown into, those two growing into one of the best bot lanes in NA. And then Pobelter as well. You see the value that Pobelter brings to that team in, I guess it was CLG, then Immortals, and now with Team Liquid. A growing mid lane talent, if he's given time, might be able to grow.
And he's someone who, despite being known in the scene for a long time, is still really young. I mean, he's 19 years old. It's not like this guy's 23 and has been...
His talent's gone. He's 19 years old. He's washed up.
I mean, obviously,
Mike Young's already a coach now. Rookie, one split, you're out.
Yeah, I mean, we don't even know where the limit is for age for esports anyways. You have great players, 26, 27, people getting married, still playing the game. So it can be any age.
No, yeah, I think it's a lot to do with, rather than age, it's with environment when it comes to developing talent. Someone might have hit their ceiling in a certain environment, but when they move into a new environment, it's a lot easier for them to grow as a player. So I think even though, someone like Nintendo or Value might be a bit older, with the right environment, they can improve just as quickly.
All right, well, let's send it on down to May. She's standing by with a Blaze Olive.
Hey guys, I am here with a Blaze Olive, the new pick for TSM. You're going to be working under Bjergsen, Parth, all of the TSM organization. What's going through your head right now?
I'm just so excited. I've always looked up to Bjergsen. When asked who I feel like I am most familiar with in playstyle, I chose Bjergsen because I thought he was just the best, and everyone looks up to him as the best. So I'm super excited that I had the potential to work with him. It's going to be amazing.
I'm so excited for you. You played in Challenger Series beforehand, and then you came into Scouting Grounds. What was the difference between the two?
Definitely the biggest difference is that in Scouting Grounds, people were so willing to learn, and the teamwork was so much there. On Challenger Series, people were really focused on winning, and I feel like it kind of created a lot of negative energy. But in Scouting Grounds, people were really focused on becoming a great teammate, and it was really awesome playing with my teammates, and I'm very excited.
Do you have one specific thing that you know that you improved on just from working with this amazing pool of talent?
I definitely improved upon becoming, being able to identify, strong side, weak side, but as well as being able to stay in the game and not over focus on a mistake, like a personal mistake I made. That was one of the first things that we were taught, is to just say, it's okay if something bad happens, everyone repeats it. So I learned how to kind of just take those big mistakes that you made individually and kind of forget about them during the game.
Well, congratulations and the best of luck to you in your future. We're going to head back over to the analyst desk.
And that's kind of what I noticed from him throughout the Scouting Grounds, was he was the guy who would take control of the game and always just want to be in the driver's seat. If somebody else messed up, he's got to compensate for it and take control of it. And I really think that him under Bjergsen will be cool to see.
All right, congratulations again to a Blaze Olive for getting picked up. Now, 100 Thieves, 10 seconds left. Quick takes. Who do you feel like they might go with? Quick.
Probably a jungler.
Go.
Also a jungler.
I don't care. They pick up something, and I want to know what it is. Let's go.
100 Thieves, take it away.
And with the 8th pick of the North American Scouting Grounds Draft for 2017, 100 Thieves has selected Kaizen. Cloud9 is once again on the clock.
We'll get a jungler right one of these days.
Yeah, I'm just gonna keep saying jungler, honestly.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
might. You have to be right. Actually.
So Kaizen getting picked up here. Again, I'm sorry about that, 100 Thieves. He was with Academy Director of 100 Thieves, Joseph Jang. Okay, so Kaizen, the one getting picked here and building around the top side.
Max Waldo.
Max Waldo, the solo queue. We had worries about his champ pool. We saw his Jace. Jace drew a ban, then he pulled out Shen, which is his second champion that we know he's very proficient on. But there were questions about that going into the tournament.
Right. I mean, when you look at, we had the stats for everyone's last 100 played champions. A lot of people had relatively deep champion pools, 7, 10 champions played. He had 4, and one of them had 1 game on it in Graga. So he's basically played 3 champions in his last 100 games. When he's on those champs, he looks fantastic. And it's a little hard to evaluate him outside that because the games that we were able to watch as a broadcast, we saw his games on his best champions. And he looks fantastic on those. So I can understand going for him here.
Yeah, I do actually want to see what happens with him in the future because talking to some of the Optic guys, he was actually the one that was least talked about in terms of interviews about, I don't know if he would actually get drafted because they thought that, his attitude and self-awareness wasn't really as high as it should be. And I'm curious to know what he's going to turn out like. And if 100 Thieves saw something that, they're like, oh, that's easy to fix.
Well, so that's the interesting thing and why being a part of the scouting grounds is really important because Optic had a chance to work with him. And maybe they realized he, like you said, maybe has a higher opinion of himself.
Took a lot of work, yeah.
Yeah, it takes a lot of work to improve upon. And from the outside, you watch those 2 games and you say, he played great in the finals. And so you might not understand the full picture behind him. And I'm sure this is something that he's going to be very eager to prove that it was worth the pick on him.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could also go with the same line of thinking with junglers that like to play aggressive champions. He kind of likes to play aggressive tops, right? And maybe they think, his champion pool might be small now, but, he knows how to play Jace. Those are some of the harder champions in top lane, really. Jace, I mean, Shen not so much, but if you're a Jace player, usually you got some sort of mechanics on you.
I'll say Shen's a little harder playing competitive. I mean, like setting up good plays.
No, he's still a tank, but yeah, of course.
Yeah, and today we saw that he was able to push an advantage, but we also saw he was able to lose gracefully in terms of lane, and he's going to be playing under Someday, correct, right? So this guy, I feel as though he's going to learn a whole bunch if he's signed to this team for the long term, and really excited because there's a lot of potential here with Kaizen. He's the guy who stood out to me in those games because he was up against Pie Cake Lord, him up against Someday in practice and stuff. It'll be a treat.
Oh yeah, if they're practicing versus each other, get ready to learn how to play carry champions because Someday's pretty good at that.
Yeah.
All right, so we're moving on to the next team up on the clock. It is Cloud9. Cloud9 with their 3rd pick here on spot 9. Only 2 picks left. And there's still a couple of players that were drafted second in the overall Drake draft. Sorry about that. In terms of Fnatic, Julian, and Blabberfish. Those 3 are guys that were valued earlier when we made the teams. Where are they going?
Okay, so they already have a top laner. They already have a jungler.
There it is.
I mean, you hope, right? You hope. And they also have Ashe now in the AD carry role. So mid and support are kind of the 2 places that you would look to pick something up here. So one of you pick mid, one of you pick support. You guys are going to be right. One of you are going to be right.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll take support. We'll go with Iron Pyrite.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So you don't want me to pick that one.
So I would say potentially Winter. Winter has already been a sub for Cloud9 in the past. And I would not be surprised if they say, all right, let's return. Let's see. He's grown, and we'll have him back.
Yeah, Winter did look pretty good in his matches today as well.
No, yeah. I just think that potentially, I think there's still one mid laner that's left that has shown that he's a very good player. He just didn't have the best showing here, and that's Linsanity. No one's really talked about him because his showing was kind of subpar, but if you play him in solo queue, you know this guy is a very good player, and that these games don't show everything about a player, and we saw that with Ashe getting 3rd pick, so.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, on day 1, with a lot of the teams here just evaluating, coming in with some information, one of the players that was very valued and talked about was Julian. Julian was in earlier. A lot of teams had them rated highly coming in. He was picked early on by TSM, their 2nd pick, and so it does seem like he would be another candidate there with already Palafox and a Blaze Olive taken away.
There was a lot of talk around the mid laners over the course of this event. I didn't feel like a ton really stood out too hard. I think, you saw good things out of Blaze Olive in terms of his aggressiveness, and then you saw really good things out of Palafox in the finals. But everyone had good moments and bad moments from the mid lane position. You saw sometimes really over-aggressive in 2v2s in the mid lane with the jungle mid skirmishes. So I think a lot of them have a lot of room to grow.
2 picks left. We'll get to see who is going to be next for the 9th pick and Cloud9's overall 3rd pick. It's going to be owner Jack Etienne on stage.
And with the 9th pick of the North American Scouting Grounds draft, Cloud9 selects Blabberfish 2. CLG is now on the clock for our last pick.
Oh, buddy.
Man.
I hope you guys
The
like
one time
reality
I didn't
TV.
guess it was going to be a jungler.
I was only joking before.
Well, you have to look at it. Maybe I can make him into my protege. Maybe that's what Jack's thinking. I mean, it has to be it, right? No.
Yeah, double jungle. So C9 going with, well, we can talk about it in terms of just draft strategy. C9 going with one of the best players still available. And because you draft someone, it doesn't mean that they're going to sign. You have the exclusivity right. We've seen all these draft picks getting wheeled and dealed. This might be an opportunity for that as well.
Right, so the exclusivity right thing working so that you have 21 days to sign that player, after which if you don't reach an agreement, they're back on the open market. C9 moved up very aggressively for 2 of their most wanted players. Maybe who knows what's going on behind the scenes. That's one of the coolest things about the draft is there's like the war room situation where everyone's shuffling papers around trying to call people, and it could have been a situation where they just didn't have anywhere to go with the pick. Maybe no one wanted it, and they just took Blabberfish because he was one of the highest value players left.
Exactly. I was like, he should know what's going on behind the scenes, right? Like,
He's on the war room out of the war room. He went out of the war room and right into the war zone.
Well, I mean, I think from my perspective is the way that you're looking at it, Blabberfish, once again, one of those players like Lin that is a very good player. He just didn't have an outstanding performance at Scouting Grounds, but that does not mean that he's not a good player at all. I don't think the meta fitted him very well. He's a very aggressive player. He's playing Gragas every game.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be difficult to look good in that way. So I think that's what they're going for there.
Yeah, 17 years old, and Optic got a quote from their management, LCS ready in a year. And that's something you can bank on there. He's got a good game sense. He's got a really good sense of how to, approach a team play as well. And he's communicative, and he's self-aware of his weaknesses. That's one of the big things that I think a lot of players don't have, because I read these player profiles, and they're like, I'm aggressive. And then you watch them play, and it's like, no, you're not.
Yeah,
you're aggressive in the wrong way.
Exactly. Sometimes too. For sure.
I went through and there's a whole team of players who every single one said aggressive, and it's like that's probably not true. You're aggressive in solo queue because that's how you win games in solo queue. But when it comes to competitive, you got to learn how to play your champion, how to play your matchup, how to play your role.
Well, he did have the big time Baron steal in our matches today. So congrats to Blabberfish to head on over to Cloud9. See how that pans out in a little bit. Now on the clock. Final pick, Mr. Irrelevant coming up. It's CLG. So CLG, one of the teams that got to coach here, got to see hands-on with Team Mountain. And it doesn't seem like they've had to retool their LCS roster. They are known for growing some academy talent. They have a full roster according to the last reports that I heard. And they're not opposed to picking up a new player, trying them out. No one's spot is safe.
Yeah, and just to clarify, if people don't know what Mr. Irrelevant is, it's a colloquial term from traditional sports.
That means CLG, man.
No. It just means the last pick of the draft. So it has nothing to do with any of the player's skill or anything like that. It's just an old term that's fun to use. And just to go back to what you're saying about CLG, as a team that did manage to work with a lot of these players, you would expect them to stick somewhere in-house with this pick, I think.
I'm unsure. I mean, I'm kind of all over the place. Like, I think Winter is quite good. They have, I believe, Biofrost on their roster now.
They do.
I think Winter is somebody that could be a good pick.
Wouldn't be surprised to see possibly Nintendo be picked up here, because I think that he's a player that a lot of academy teams could want for that reason that he has experience, and they want someone to kind of lead them. And I think that he's a good pickup. He's a good player.
Well, I think what's interesting is not just what value does a player bring to your academy team, but can they bring value to your main roster as well? Nintendo is a guy who's played in the LCS before. And so if you're looking for someone to come in and maybe sit behind Rainover in scrims and say, how can we use him and how can we improve? And I know Rainover is a guy who likes to talk to people. He's very, very willing to learn from other people. And if Nintendo, you think, is the most experienced jungler, understands competitive play the most, which a lot of people feel like he did in this event, I think you can understand why CLG could go for someone like him.
Now, you know who I think would be the best fit stylistically is Pie Cake Lord, because Darshan has made the exact same transition of split push god, the Nasus, the Jax, that style, and knows TP flanks like the back of his hand. I think the Pie Kick Lord would be a good fit stylistically if you wanted to grow somebody into that same style.
All right, well, the pick is in. The final pick of the Scouting Grounds draft. Let's head on over back to the stage with Chris Greely and Counter Logic Gaming Director of Esports, Matthew Nasha.
And with the 10th and final pick of the 2017 North American Scouting Grounds draft, Counter Logic Gaming selects the dude, Nintendo X. That concludes the draft. Thank you.
You're welcome, but we're not quite done with our coverage here, and good call. There it is.
1 for 10.
Yeah.
1 for 10, that's all that matters.
Yeah,
here.
we close out on a win. That feels good for us. Plus, seeing Nintendo potentially back in the LCS, at least on an organization again, is such a great feeling for anyone who's been a longtime LCS fan.
That's right. Going back with his second place GGU teammate Darshan when he used to be known as what everyone used to call him, Zion Spartan.
Yeah, and like we were saying, this is a really interesting pickup because we can talk about veteran leadership on an academy team. He'll be useful there. And if he actually does start working with Rainover and the two of them bounce ideas off of each other, that's something where CLG did work with Nintendo at this event. So they might know that, hey, this is a guy that we can actually use in a very useful way over the course of the season.
I'm actually really happy to see him back. Like, he hasn't been around for a few years. Last you saw him in professional play was Team Fusion expansion tournament, trying to get in, fell down, and kind of like he said, he's now healthy, and it's really great to have him here.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people might have counted him out from the get-go just because, you know, oh, it's Nintendo. I haven't seen that guy for 2 years. But
Emerging talent.
yeah. Like, but you have to realize that there's other things that team want other than, you know, young talent. Like, that's, you know, the focus of it. But there's other things that you can get from a player in this draft, and I think that it was a smart pickup by them.
Yeah, like you said, kind of forgotten about, 10th pick in the draft order here, was 17th in the overall draft, in the Drake draft. That's actually huge. He was the last pick for Mountain and for CLG.
And for junglers as well.
That's surprising that, actually, we got to give props to Avali for just picking out whoever in the interview ends up picking up Nintendo, and we get to see a lot of the insight on what he did bring. I had heard the stories throughout the week that he was the kind of player that had a lot of game knowledge, that brought a lot of the veteran leadership. It was him and Ablaze Olive there for Team Mountain. But then to hear him say, hey, I was also the guy that has gone through a lot. I've been through adversity, and yeah, we're behind in this matchup, but we can still do it, guys. That sounds like a player that you want to have around.
He's incredibly passionate. You could tell that he wanted this, that it was taken away from him, and he wants it back after all these years. And I'm so excited to see him because I think he's going to come back with a fire and a great kind of boost to the Academy squad that he's going to be on, because I think Zix can definitely work with that too.
Well, one interview is good, twice is just as nice. Let's send it down to Avali with Nintendo.
Hey guys, I am here with yet another interview with Nintendo. You are our last pick in the draft. Were you nervous at all?
Yeah, I was nervous. I wasn't expecting to get drafted, and for me, it was like kind of understandable. A lot of young guys here, but I'm happy I did. I mean, I'm thrilled to have another shot at this, and I couldn't be happier.
How does it feel wearing the CLG hat right now? I mean, you've played against them before in the past.
I worked with CLG all week, and I've been wearing the hat all week, just kind of like, oh, for Scouting Grounds, and I played against them a lot earlier in my career, and did I think I'd end up on CLG at the beginning of the week? Hell no, but I couldn't ask for anything better right now. This is amazing.
Well, you said so yourself. This is another shot for you to make it into the pro scene. What do you plan on bringing to the table?
I think a lot of experience. Obviously, CLG has a lot of experience already, but as far as what I bring to Academy, I think I bring a role of leadership. I'm hoping they saw that in playing with Team Mountain this week, and I think that's the main thing I bring. And I'm just hyped, and I'm hungry, I'm ready. Let's go.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to see you back in the scene, and I wish you the best of luck. And to finish it off, we're going to head to our analysts.
Thank you very much, Avali. And There it is, guys. Draft overall thoughts immediately. What are your quick takeaways?
First takeaway is like I love the draft. It's so much fun. I was super happy to be a part of this. It's like a historic moment for Lowell Esports. I mean, this is going to keep happening hopefully every year. So I am just thrilled to be a part of it, and I'm sure a lot of the players were too.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be nerve-wracking being out there in the crowd, and also the people who didn't get drafted still have opportunities. Because I'm looking at Fnatic, Piecake Lord, Prismal, Winter. There's academy spots open. The draft isn't the end of the world if you didn't get picked up. But for the guys who did, man, you got to be happy, especially with some of the people who got picked up by certain orgs too.
It's just good to see players that probably wouldn't have had a shot, like Nintendo or Value, or a lot of the players in the draft probably wouldn't have had a shot at going pro at all. And it's just good to see how happy they are when they do get that shot. So.
Yeah, and like Zyrene was saying, this isn't the end of the road for players who didn't get drafted. There's still a ton of spots open for academy teams. You can expect to see a lot of these guys again later on in the academy play that's going to be happening over the course of the LCS season.
I think my biggest takeaway is Optic Gaming's ability to draft and to coach up talent. In this situation, they had 4 of their 5 players picked up, all relatively early in Vulcan, Palafox, Blabberfish, and Kaizen. And so they said, I'd be surprised if these guys didn't make an academy roster. They almost made all of it true so far.
I think it's a good first showing for Zabatine in the North American scene, able to go out, win this event, and get a lot of his players with his, kind of helping hand and coaching drafted onto academy teams. That's a good storyline as well.
All right, so with the draft now over, the 2017 NA Scouting Grounds has come to a close. But don't worry, you'll have an opportunity to see many of these faces again when the NA Academy Championship Series starts up in January. And to get your league fix in before the new year, be sure to check out the 2017 All-Star Tournament next weekend. We're bringing your favorite players from around the world to the City of Stars to compete in regional dream team clashes and epic 1v1 battles. The action starts on Thursday, December 7th at 3 p.m. And yes, it has the new runes.
Woohoo!
And yes, it has Zoe enabled. You won't want to miss it. Boo.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this event. It's always probably the most fun event that you'll see all year. Worlds has all the hype, all the craziness.
This was pretty fun.
This was pretty fun. But, I mean, watching Bjergsen and FLICKR team up and the kind of shenanigans that happen at All-Stars is hard to match anywhere else.
True. Yeah. And RIP Runes and Masteries. Only Runes now. Runes Reforged as we go on. Now for myself, the casters, Zag, Wiggly, and the entire live broadcast crew, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week at All Stars. Take care, guys. Hello, League fans, and welcome to the 2017 North American Scouting Grounds. We're coming to you live from our studios in Los Angeles, where the best players from solo queue will battle for glory on the LCS stage and garner the attention of professional teams.
This is 2v2, damage coming down, Linsanity gonna be bursted first. First blood over the way of a Blaze Olive.
Wait, we have to fight, we have to fight.
He's done.
Nice.
We win this, let's go.
Nice.
It's gonna be Ash once more under pressure. Rodolph grabbing the kill as League falls 2. Team Mountain is just too far ahead. Cloud's best efforts will be in vain. Team Mountain goes up 1-0.
That guy's flashing. Get him.
Trying to help.
Nice.
Good job.
Good job.
Nice shit. Holy shit.
Really good job, guys.
And he throws it to the side. Look at Winter. Oh, man, that's a close one.
J4.
I'm dead.
I'm on Sidra.
Nice front line.
You're not dead, bro. I got you.
The engage onto Insanity, not quite going to be finding the value. You were talking, Cyrene, about how this guy is aggressive. It was very close, almost a game 3, but Mountain will find their 2-0 win.
Nice front line.
You're not dead, bro. I got you.
Zaya.
That's my favorite thing in the world.
We're on turret. Turret. Keep going. Zaya.
Go.
Let's go. Driving.
Go to Baron.
Flag goes down. Blabberfish wants to go in. He's able to find it. Good Lord, man.
Let's fucking go!
Prismal with another good kill onto the enemy AD carry. The damage comes through. Prismal will fall, but so will the entirety of Team Infernal, and Ocean will push for the win. They're reversing it. The quadra kill. Could it be the penta for Noah Most?
They're gonna flash on us. Leave.
You got it, Kishin.
Let's fucking go! Go top. Come with me.
Nice, Pi. We can end after this.
Let's go! Can they do any more with it? Prismal's able to find 1 kill. They're able to find 3. Can they make it 5? The damage comes through.
Let's go!
Optics Team Ocean will end up in first place after the scouting rounds.